The Galactic Council Station floated in the darkness of space like a massive jewel. Its walls were made of crystal and glowing lights, beautiful and peaceful. Inside, representatives from hundreds of different alien species gathered in the Great Council chamber. They came from every corner of the known galaxy, each species unique in their own way. Ambassador Minho Kim stood near the entrance, adjusting his formal suit. He was a human diplomat, experienced and careful with his words. At 50 years old, his hair was turning gray, but his eyes were sharp and alert. He had been representing humanity at the Galactic Council for 3 years now, and he still found it amazing to see so many different life forms in one place. Beside him stood Jiho Park, his assistant and cultural attaché. She was young, only 28, with bright eyes full of curiosity and excitement. She carried a data pad and was constantly taking notes about everything she saw. Jiho loved learning about alien cultures, and she could speak 7 different alien languages fluently. Today's meeting was about education. The council wanted to create new rules to make sure all young beings in the galaxy were raised properly and safely. It seemed like a simple topic, nothing controversial. Minho thought it would be an easy session. The chamber filled with delegates. A tall crystalline being entered, their body made of something that looked like living glass. This was the Veltari, representative from a species known across the galaxy as the greatest teachers and educators. They moved gracefully, their form catching the light and creating small rainbows on the walls. Behind them came the Thrawn Observer, a massive creature that looked like a giant insect with thick armor plating and multiple legs. Despite their frightening appearance, the Thrawn were known as peacekeepers. They had once been warriors long ago, but their species had evolved past violence through careful mental training. The meeting began. Speaker after speaker talked about their species' approach to raising children. The Veltari described nurseries, filled with perfect temperatures and gentle learning programs. Another species explained how their young ones grew in special pools with carefully balanced nutrients. A third species talked about simulation programs that taught their children everything they needed to know without any physical risk. Minho listened carefully. He noticed something interesting. Every species seemed to raise their young in completely safe environments. No danger, no challenges, no hardship. Everything was controlled and protected. Then it was humanity's turn. The Veltari representative turned toward Minho and Jiho. Their voice was musical, like wind chimes. Honored human delegates, we would be interested to learn about your species' educational practices. What do you teach your young during their development years? Jiho smiled brightly. She loved talking about Earth. Of course, our children learn many things. We teach them mathematics, reading, writing, history, and science. They study art, music, and physical education. We teach them about our planet and the universe around us. The Veltari representative nodded, their crystalline body glowing softly. This sounds very similar to our own curriculum, very reasonable and proper. Jiho continued, still smiling. Oh, and we also teach survival skills. You know, basic things like first aid, water purification, building emergency shelters, starting fires without matches or lighters, and identifying which plants are safe to eat. The chamber became suddenly silent. Every alien in the room turned to look at the human delegation. The quiet was so complete that Minho could hear his own heartbeat. He felt a cold feeling in his stomach. Something was wrong. The Veltari representative's glow flickered, showing confusion and concern. Forgive me, but could you repeat that last part? Did you say you teach children to create fire? Without safety equipment? Jiho looked confused. Yes, that's right. It's a basic survival skill. We teach them several methods, actually. Friction-based. Fire starting is usually taught around age 10 or 11. A murmur ran through the chamber. Delegates began speaking to each other in worried tones. The Thrawn observer's antennae twitched rapidly, a sign of agitation in their species. Another delegate spoke up, a small furry creature with large eyes. You mentioned water purification. Why would children need to purify water? Is your water supply contaminated? Minho stepped forward, trying to calm the situation. Our water systems are perfectly safe in cities and towns. We teach these skills for emergency situations. Sometimes people go hiking or camping in wilderness areas where clean water isn't readily available. Wilderness areas? The Velthari representative asked. You allow children to enter dangerous environments? Jiho realized the misunderstanding was growing worse. She tried to explain. Earth has many different environments. Some areas have extreme weather, wild animals, and natural hazards. We teach children how to handle these situations safely. Extreme weather? Wild animals? Natural hazards? The questions came from multiple delegates at once. They sounded shocked and disturbed. The Thrawn observer spoke in a deep, rumbling voice. On my homeworld, we have no predators larger than your human finger. Our climate is stable year-round. Our young ones never face any physical danger during their development. Are you saying your planet is hostile to life? Minho exchanged a worried glance with Jiho. He was beginning to understand the problem. These aliens came from paradise worlds. They had never experienced real environmental danger. The concept of teaching children survival skills seemed insane to them. Earth can be challenging, Minho said carefully. But it's also beautiful. Our species evolved to adapt to many different conditions. We teach our children these skills because our ancestors needed them to survive and thrive. The Velthari representative's glow had turned a darker shade, showing deep concern. This is very troubling information. We must discuss this matter further. I request a private meeting with the human delegation after this session. The session continued, but everything had changed. Delegates whispered to each other, casting worried looks at Minho and Jiho. The humans could pick up fragments of conversation, words that made Minho's stomach tighten with worry. Child endangerment. Barbaric practices. Intervention necessary. When the session finally ended, Minho and Jiho walked through the crystal corridors back to their quarters. Neither spoke at first. Other delegates moved out of their way, staring at them with expressions that ranged from pity to disgust. Back in their rooms, Jiho sat down heavily. I don't understand. We just described normal childhood education. Why did everyone react like we were describing torture? Minho stood at the window looking out at the stars. Because to them it is torture. These species evolved on worlds without danger. They don't understand that Earth made us strong precisely because it was difficult. They see us teaching children survival skills and think we're cruel. They don't realize we're preparing them for reality. What happens now? Jiho asked quietly. Minho turned from the window, his expression serious. Now we have to convince the entire Galactic Council that humanity isn't abusing its children, and I have no idea how to do that when they can't even imagine the world we come from. His communication device beeped. A message appeared from the Velthari representative, requesting a meeting the next morning. The message was polite but formal, with an underlying tone of urgency. Attached was a preliminary report draft that made Minho's blood run cold. Words like unsuitable environment for sapient development and potential intervention protocols filled the document. Minho realized that humanity's entire future in the galaxy might depend on explaining something simple. How do you teach fire starting to children? The answer had seemed obvious on Earth. Now, surrounded by aliens from peaceful worlds, it seemed like the most complicated question in the universe. Jiho reviewed the recordings from the session, watching the moment when everything changed. When she mentioned starting fires, teaching water purification, and survival skills, she had been so casual about it. These were just normal things that human children learned. Now those same normal things might cost humanity its place among the stars. The two humans spent the rest of the night preparing for the meeting. They pulled up educational materials from Earth, showing how survival skills were taught safely in controlled environments. They gathered statistics showing that these programs actually reduced accidents by teaching children to respect and understand nature. They compiled testimonials from educators and child development experts. But as dawn approached on the station's artificial cycle, Minho wondered if any amount of data would help. How could they bridge a gap this fundamental? The aliens feared what humans considered basic preparation. They saw danger where humans saw education. They wanted to protect children from challenges that humans believed made children stronger. The message light blinked on Minho's desk, another incoming communication. More council members requesting information about human child rearing practices. The controversy was spreading. What had started as a simple question in an education summit was becoming a crisis that could determine humanity's entire relationship with the galactic community. 3 weeks after the education summit, a Galactic Council investigation team arrived on Earth. Their ship landed at a remote spaceport in the mountains of Korea, far from the crowded cities. The aliens wanted to see human children in their natural learning environment, away from anything that might be staged for their benefit. The investigation team included the same Velthari representative and Thrawn observer, who had questioned Minho at the council. With them came several specialists in child development from different species, all carrying scanning equipment and recording devices. They wore environmental suits even though Earth's atmosphere was perfectly breathable for most of them. They seemed nervous. Hyejin Lee stood waiting at the outdoor education center where she worked as a teacher. She was in her 30s with practical clothes suited for hiking and outdoor work. Her hair was tied back in a simple ponytail, and she had a friendly smile that put most people at ease. She taught middle school science and ran an outdoor survival program on weekends. When the aliens arrived, Hyejin greeted them warmly. "Welcome to our program. The students are very excited to meet you. They've never seen alien visitors before." The Velthari representative's crystalline form flickered with concern. "The students will be present during potentially dangerous activities. Should they not be kept at a safe distance from our observations?" Hyejin looked confused. "But we want you to see how we teach them. That's why you're here, right? To observe our educational methods?" Dr. Somin Choi, a child psychologist assigned by Earth's government to help with the investigation, stepped forward. She was a brilliant woman in her 40s who specialized in child development. "I assure you everything we do today is part of our standard curriculum. The children are supervised and the activities are age-appropriate." The aliens exchanged glances but followed Hyejin toward a clearing in the forest. About 15 children were gathered there, ranging from 10 to 13 years old. They looked at the aliens with wonder and excitement, whispering to each other and pointing at the Thrawn observer's impressive size. One girl, about 12 years old, ran up to greet them. Her name was Daeun Han, and she was one of Hyejin's best students. She had bright eyes and a cheerful personality. "Are you really from other planets? That's amazing. Can you teach us about space?" The Velthari representative bent down to Daeun's level, their voice gentle. "We are indeed from far away, young one. But today we are here to learn from you." Hyejin clapped her hands to get everyone's attention. "All right, class. Today we're reviewing basic survival skills. We're going to practice building emergency shelters, identifying safe water sources, and fire-starting techniques. Who wants to volunteer first?" Several hands shot up immediately. The aliens watched in silence as Hyejin led the children through the forest, pointing out different plants and explaining which ones were safe to eat and which were poisonous. The children took notes and asked questions, completely comfortable in the outdoor environment. The Thrawn observer whispered to the Velthari representative, "They are teaching children to identify poisonous plants. Why not simply remove all dangerous plants from their environment?" Dr. Somin overheard and explained, "Earth has millions of plant species. We can't remove them all, and people often travel to wild areas for recreation. Children need to know how to identify hazards wherever they go." Next, Hyejin showed the students how to build a shelter using branches, leaves, and natural materials. The children worked in small groups, constructing simple but effective structures that could protect someone from rain and wind. They laughed and helped each other, treating it like a fun game rather than a serious survival situation. Then came the fire-starting demonstration. Daeun volunteered enthusiastically. She gathered dry grass and small twigs, arranging them carefully. Then she took out a bow drill kit, a simple tool made of wood and cord. "This is one of the oldest methods humans use to make fire," Daeun explained to the aliens as she worked. "You spin this stick really fast against this board, and the friction creates heat. When it gets hot enough, you get an ember." She began working the bow back and forth, spinning the drill. Her technique was practiced and efficient. After a few minutes, smoke began to rise from the wood. The alien observers stepped back nervously. "There," Daeun said happily. A small glowing ember appeared in the wood dust. She carefully transferred it to her tinder bundle and blew on it gently. Smoke increased and suddenly small flames appeared. The other children cheered. The Velthari representative's glow dimmed with worry. The child just created uncontrolled combustion. Where are the fire suppression systems? The safety barriers? Hyejin smiled patiently. Daeun has been trained in fire safety since she was very young. She knows how to control it, how to put it out safely, and when not to start fires. This is a controlled demonstration in a safe area with water nearby and no dry vegetation around. But the aliens didn't seem reassured. They watched as the children took turns practicing with the fire-starting equipment, each one successful after a few tries. The children were completely confident and careful, following all safety rules without being told. After the demonstrations, Hyejin announced the weekend camping trip. Everyone remember to pack your gear lists. We'll be hiking 10 kilometers to the campsite, setting up our own shelters and cooking our own meals. It's going to be 3 days in the wilderness, so make sure you're prepared. The children responded with enthusiasm, already discussing what they would bring and which trails they would take. The aliens, however, looked horrified. The Thrawn observer spoke urgently. You are planning to leave children alone in a hostile environment for 3 days? What emergency response teams will accompany them? What medical facilities will be available? I'll be there with 2 other adult supervisors, Hyejin said. We carry first aid kits and emergency communication devices. But the whole point is for the children to practice independence. They need to set up their own camps, manage their own supplies, and handle small problems themselves. Why? The Velthari representative asked, genuinely confused. Why must children handle problems? Why not simply prevent all problems from occurring? Dr. Salmon stepped in to explain. Research shows that children who learn to handle controlled challenges develop better problem-solving skills, confidence, and resilience. They learn they're capable of more than they thought. These experiences help them become independent adults, but at what cost? The Velthari representative asked softly. On my world, children are never cold, never hungry, never uncomfortable. They learn everything they need through safe simulations. Why would you choose to make your children suffer? Daeun had been listening to this conversation. She spoke up, her voice clear and confident. We're not suffering. This is fun. I love camping. I love learning how to do things by myself. It makes me feel strong and capable. When I started my first fire, I felt so proud because I knew my ancestors did the same thing thousands of years ago. The aliens didn't know how to respond. They had expected to find miserable, frightened children forced into dangerous situations. Instead, they found happy, confident young humans who enjoyed the very activities the aliens considered traumatic. The weekend camping trip happened despite the aliens' protests. The investigation team Upsahe documented everything as the children hiked through the forest. Carrying heavy backpacks, setting up tents, and cooking simple meals over fires they started themselves. On the second night, a rainstorm hit. The aliens prepared to call for an emergency evacuation. But the children simply secured their gear, reinforced their shelters, and made sure everyone stayed dry. They worked together efficiently, helping younger or less experienced campers. No one panicked. No one cried. They handled the situation like it was just another part of the adventure. When the rain stopped, the children gathered around a campfire. Daeun taught some of the younger kids a traditional folk song while they roasted food over the flames. The scene was peaceful and happy. The children looked content, sitting in the wilderness under the stars. Inside their shuttle, the investigation team reviewed their recordings. The Velthari representative drafted their report, while the others watched footage of the camping trip. The words they wrote were clinical and concerned, describing children exposed to extreme conditions without proper protection or facilities. But when they looked at the video screens showing the children laughing and singing around the fire, there was a disconnect between what they believed should be happening and what they actually saw. The children didn't look traumatized. They looked happy. The Thrawn observer spoke quietly, watching Daeun demonstrate fire starting to a younger child. I was raised in a perfectly controlled hive environment. Every need met, every danger removed. I never experienced cold or hunger or challenge until I was an adult. These human children face all of that, and yet they smile. I am beginning to wonder what we lost in our pursuit of perfect safety. The Velthari representative didn't answer. They just continued writing their report, trying to find words to explain to the Galactic Council what they had witnessed. How do you describe children who thrive in conditions that would terrify most adult aliens? How do you explain that what looks like child endangerment might... The Great Council chamber was filled to capacity. Representatives from 300 species sat in their designated areas, all reviewing the investigation report from Earth. The massive screens around the chamber showed images of human children camping in the wilderness, starting fires and carrying heavy equipment through forests. To the assembled aliens, it looked like evidence of a serious problem. Ambassador Minho stood at the center speaking platform, feeling the weight of hundreds of alien eyes watching him. Beside him stood Jiho, Captain Jiwon Kang, and anthropologist Teong Nam. They had brought experts and evidence, but Minho knew the real challenge was making aliens understand something completely foreign to their experience. The Veltari representative presented their findings first. Their musical voice filled the chamber as they described everything they witnessed on Earth. They showed footage of children building shelters, purifying water, and creating fire with primitive tools. They shared temperature readings from the camping trip, showing how cold it got at night. They documented the physical effort required for children to carry supplies and hike long distances. Based on our investigation, the Velthari concluded, we must classify Earth as a Category 4 death world, unsuitable for the development of young sapient beings. We recommend immediate intervention to relocate human children to safer environments until Earth can be properly terraformed. The chamber erupted in discussion. Many species agreed with the recommendation. A few questioned whether intervention was appropriate. None disputed the classification of Earth as dangerous.
Minho felt his heart sink.
They were talking about taking human children away from their families, away from Earth, all because they didn't understand. When order was restored, Minho was given his chance to respond. He took a deep breath and began. Honored representatives, I understand your concern. But I must help you understand that what you consider dangerous, we consider normal. What you see as hardship, we see as education. What you interpret as child endangerment is actually how we prepare our young to be capable adults. A delegate from a methane-breathing species spoke up. Ambassador, surely you understand our position. We have a responsibility to protect all sapient children in the galaxy. Your planet subjects young beings to cold, hunger, physical exhaustion, and exposure to dangerous elements. How can we ignore this? Teong Nam stepped forward. He was a researcher who had spent years studying galactic civilizations. His voice was calm and academic. With respect, I believe there is a fundamental misunderstanding here. Every species in this council evolved on what humans would call paradise worlds. Your planets have stable climates, abundant resources, and few natural hazards. You had the luxury of evolving slowly and peacefully over millions of years. He activated a holographic display showing Earth's history. Earth is different. Our planet has gone through ice ages, volcanic eruptions, asteroid impacts, and mass extinctions. The climate changes dramatically between seasons and locations. We have predators that can kill adult humans. We have weather that can be deadly. Our planet has tried to kill us in every way imaginable. The images showed ancient humans surviving in frozen tundras, scorching deserts, and dense jungles. They showed early humans fighting to survive against incredible odds. Some aliens looked away from the disturbing images, but Taeyong continued. Humanity didn't develop technology to make life more comfortable, he said. We developed it to stay alive. Every tool, every technique, every bit of knowledge we have exists because our ancestors needed it or they would die. We teach our children survival skills for the same reason, because on Earth those skills might save their lives. Captain Jiwon Kang took over the presentation. She was a military officer, decorated and respected. Her presence commanded attention. I serve in the Earth Defense Force. Before humanity joined the galactic community, we had wars among ourselves. Do you know why? Because Earth taught us that survival requires strength, skill, and adaptability. We fought over resources because resources were scarce. We developed weapons because threats were real. She paused, letting her words sink in. Your species never needed to fight for survival. You evolved in gentle environments where cooperation was easy and resources were abundant. You had millions of years to develop slowly. Humans compressed that same development into mere thousands of years because we had no choice. Earth forced us to adapt quickly or go extinct. The Thrawn observer spoke from their seat. Captain, are you suggesting that hardship made humanity superior? No, Jiwon said firmly. I'm saying it made us different. Your species are not weak because you evolved peacefully. You're fortunate, but you must understand that what looks like abuse to you is preparation to us. When we teach a child to start a fire, we're teaching them they can solve problems. When we teach them to purify water, we're teaching them not to depend entirely on systems that might fail. When we take them camping, we're teaching them confidence and capability. Minho made a bold proposal. Let us demonstrate. Bring human children here to this station. Give them a challenge, something you consider difficult. Let the council see for themselves what our children are capable of. The Velthari representative considered this. Very well. We will create a survival simulation calibrated to match Earth conditions. If your children can succeed without distress, perhaps we will reconsider our position. 2 weeks later, Dayun and 5 other students from Hyejin's program arrived at the council station. They were excited and curious, treating the whole experience as an amazing adventure. The council had prepared a sealed environment, a simulated wilderness with Earth-like challenges. The challenge was simple: survive for 24 hours using only natural materials found in the environment. No technology, no outside help, no modern tools. Most adult aliens would have failed this challenge immediately. The children approached it with enthusiasm. The entire council watched through observation screens as the 6 human children assessed their situation. Within minutes, they had divided tasks among themselves. 2 children searched for water sources. 2 others gathered materials for shelter. The remaining 2 worked on starting a fire. Dayun led the fire-starting team. She found suitable wood and showed her partner how to prepare a proper bow drill set. Her movements were confident and practiced. She talked through each step, teaching while doing. Remember, the wood needs to be dry but not too hard. You want friction, not just spinning. Within an hour, the children had a working camp. They built a shelter using branches and leaves, creating a structure that would protect them from rain and wind. They found a stream and set up a water purification system using rocks, sand, and boiling. They started a fire using the bow drill method and kept it going with careful attention. But what amazed the watching aliens wasn't just the technical skill. It was the attitude. The children were laughing and joking with each other. They treated problems as interesting puzzles to solve rather than crises to fear. When one child struggled with a task, the others helped without being asked. They worked as a team naturally and efficiently. As evening came, the children sat around their fire, cooking simple food they had foraged. They sang songs and told stories. One boy demonstrated how to make cordage from plant fibers. A girl showed everyone the constellations she could see through the dome's transparent sections, explaining how ancient humans used stars to navigate. In the council chamber, a young Velthari observer who had been watching the entire time spoke softly. They are not afraid. They face challenges that would terrify me, and they are not afraid. The Thrawn observer nodded slowly. I was raised in a perfectly safe hive. Every danger was removed from my environment. I was taught to suppress my natural instincts. These human children embrace their instincts. They trust themselves. Perhaps we removed too much danger from our own development. When the 24 hours ended, the children emerged from the simulation, tired but happy. Daeun was grinning. That was so much fun! Can we do it again? The council chamber was silent for a long moment. Then the Velthari representative spoke. I came to Earth expecting to find traumatized children forced into dangerous situations. Instead, I found confident young beings who faced challenges with capability and joy. I believe we must reconsider our understanding of proper child development. The vote was called. The intervention proposal was rejected. Earth would remain classified as a Category 4 death world, but humanity would not be prevented from raising their children there. However, the full implications of this decision were still unclear. As the human delegation prepared to leave the chamber, the Thrawn observer approached Minho privately. Ambassador, I spent my entire childhood learning to suppress my warrior instincts. Your children learn to embrace their survival instincts. Tell me honestly, which of us do you think is truly prepared for an uncertain galaxy? Minho had no answer, but as he watched Daeun laughing with her friends, still excited about their adventure, he thought perhaps the galaxy was about to find out. 3 months passed after the Council's decision. Life returned to normal for most species, but the universe had other plans. A rogue stellar phenomenon, a cascading gravitational wave from an unstable pulsar, disrupted faster than light travel across an entire sector of space. Dozens of ships were stranded, unable to navigate safely through the distorted space. One of those ships was a Council diplomatic vessel carrying representatives from 20 different species. Among the passengers were the Velthari representative and the Thrawn observer, returning from a routine meeting. Also aboard were 3 humans, Jiho, Captain Jiwan, and Hyejin, who had been invited to speak at an academic conference about educational methods. When the ship's navigation systems failed, the captain had no choice but to make an emergency landing on the nearest habitable planet. The ship descended through thick clouds and crashed hard into a forested area. The landing gear crumpled and critical systems were damaged, but everyone survived. The planet was uncharted, never colonized because preliminary scans had classified it as too harsh. It was Earth-like but wild, with no settlements, no infrastructure, and no easy resources. The ship's communication systems were damaged. Rescue would take at least 2 weeks because all nearby vessels were dealing with their own navigation problems. The crew gathered in the damaged ship's main hall. The captain, a nervous creature from a species that lived in stable underwater environments, addressed everyone. Our food synthesizers are offline. The heating system is failing. We have emergency supplies that will last perhaps 4 days. We must wait for rescue. The alien passengers looked terrified. Most had never experienced discomfort in their entire lives. The temperature inside the ship was already dropping, and night was coming. Several species began showing signs of distress as the reality of their situation became clear. Jiho, Jiwan, and Hyejin exchanged glances. While the aliens panicked and debated protocol, the 3 humans were already assessing the situation practically. Jiwan walked to the damaged airlock and looked outside at the wilderness. We need to scout the area and find resources. The Velthari representative approached them. What are you doing? We should remain in the ship and wait for rescue as instructed. Hyejin pulled out a small survival kit she always carried. If we stay in this ship with failing systems, many of you will become hypothermic before rescue arrives. We need to find water, gather materials for insulation, and establish a heat source. A heat source? The Velthari's crystalline form flickered with confusion. You mean fire? That dangerous thing? That life-saving thing, Jiho corrected gently. Trust us. We know what we're doing. The first night was terrible for the aliens. The temperature dropped below freezing. Most species had never experienced genuine cold. The ship's damaged heating system could barely warm a single room. Not enough for all 60 passengers. Several aliens became dangerously cold within hours. While the crew debated emergency protocols and tried to contact superiors they couldn't reach, the humans took action. Hyejin led a group outside to gather natural insulation materials, dry leaves, grass, and moss. She showed the aliens how to stuff these materials into their clothing for warmth. Jiwan organized a water expedition. She found a stream and taught several aliens how to identify if water was safe to drink. When they looked doubtful, she demonstrated purification methods using boiling and improvised filtration systems made from rocks and sand. Jiho started a fire outside the ship using the bow drill method. The Velthari representative watched, shivering despite thermal wraps. They watched Jiho work the bow back and forth, creating friction until smoke appeared, then an ember, then flames. You are doing that thing, the Velthari said quietly. That dangerous thing you teach children? Jiho looked up from tending the growing fire. This dangerous thing is keeping us alive right now. Come closer. You need the warmth. Hesitantly, the Velthari approached. The heat from the fire was immediate and wonderful. Other aliens gathered around, experiencing warmth from a natural fire for the first time in their lives. It was primitive and frightening, but it was also comforting and real. Over the following days, the humans became the de facto leaders of the survival effort. They taught aliens to build debris shelters to supplement the damaged ship. They showed them how to identify edible plants using careful testing methods. They maintained constant fires for warmth and water purification. The Thrawn observer proved surprisingly helpful. Their species had warrior instincts that had been suppressed for generations, but those instincts still existed. Under Jiwan's guidance, the Thrawn used their natural strength to gather heavy materials and clear areas for camps. They discovered they enjoyed the physical work. My ancestors were fighters, the Thrawn told Jiwan one evening as they worked together. I spent my entire life pretending otherwise, suppressing what I am. But here, using my strength for survival, I feel complete for the first time. Perhaps my people lost something important when we removed all challenge from our lives. On the 5th day, Hyejin organized a foraging expedition. She taught a mixed group of aliens how to find protein sources, including insects and small animals. Many species were philosophically opposed to consuming other life forms, but hunger proved persuasive. Hyejin showed them how to prepare food safely and respectfully. A small methane-breathing administrator learned to start fires. A species that communicated through bioluminescence learned to use smoke signals. A Velthari scholar who had lived their entire life in temperature-controlled pools learned to split wood for firewood. Each small achievement was celebrated. On day 10, a major storm hit. The humans recognized the signs: the changing wind, the cloud patterns, the pressure drop. They had seen similar patterns before hurricanes on Earth. They immediately began preparing, reinforcing shelters, securing supplies, and moving everyone to higher ground away from potential flooding. The aliens panicked as the storm approached, wanting to retreat to the damaged ship. But the humans insisted they follow the safety protocols. The ship might flood or collapse, Jiwon explained firmly. We're safer in properly built shelters on high ground. The storm was violent. Rain fell in sheets. Wind tore at their shelters. Thunder shook the ground. But the preparations held. The shelters, built using techniques Hyejin normally taught to 12-year-olds, kept everyone dry and safe. The aliens huddled together, frightened but protected. Jiho moved between shelters, checking on everyone, bringing warm drinks made from boiled water and edible plants. She was calm and reassuring, treating the crisis like something manageable rather than catastrophic. Her confidence helped the aliens stay calm. When the storm passed, they found the ship had partially flooded, just as Jiwon predicted. If everyone had stayed inside, many would have been injured or worse. The aliens looked at the humans with new understanding and respect. By day 14, when the rescue ships finally arrived, the diplomatic party was not huddled in the damaged vessel waiting desperately for salvation. Instead, they were camped outside in an organized settlement. They had working fires, clean water systems, food storage, and comfortable shelters. They were healthy, organized, and in some cases reluctant to leave. The rescue crew was shocked. They expected to find survivors in crisis. Instead, they found a functional camp where aliens who had lived their entire lives in perfect safety were cooking over open fires, maintaining shelters and working together efficiently. As everyone prepared to board the rescue ships, the Velthari representative approached Jiho. "I came to your world to judge your methods of raising children," they said quietly. "I was horrified by what I saw. Teaching children to survive in harsh conditions seemed cruel and unnecessary." They paused, looking at the camp they had all built together. "But now I understand. You were not teaching them to survive. You were teaching them to be capable. You were teaching them they can handle whatever challenges life presents. When our ship crashed, I was helpless. Your people immediately started solving problems. That difference might have saved all our lives." Around the camp, aliens were carefully banking the fires they had learned to build. They packed away tools they had crafted. They took final looks at the shelters that had protected them. Many asked the humans to teach them more. As the ships lifted off, leaving the wild planet behind, Jiho looked at Hyejin and Jiwon. "We just taught survival skills to a significant portion of the Galactic Council leadership. I think things are about to change." Hyejin smiled. "Good. Maybe now they will understand that teaching children to start fires with sticks is not abuse. It is preparing them for a universe that is not always safe or comfortable. It is teaching them to be truly capable." In the seats behind them, the Velthari representative was already writing a new report. This one had a very different conclusion than the last. 6 months after the stranding incident, the Galactic Council chamber looked different. Representatives who had survived the crash now wore more practical clothing instead of ornate ceremonial robes. Some carried small survival kits, something that would have been unthinkable a year ago. The atmosphere in the chamber had shifted from pure intellectual discussion to something more grounded in real experience. The Velthari representative stood before the assembly with a proposal that shocked many traditional members. They wanted to establish a galaxy-wide survival education program based on human teaching methods. Not to make peaceful species into warriors, but to prepare all beings for unexpected challenges. For millions of years, the Velthari began, their crystalline form glowing softly. We have measured advancement by how completely we eliminated challenges from our lives. We built perfect environments where nothing could go wrong. We protected our children from every possible discomfort. We believed this was the highest form of civilization. They paused, and their glow flickered with what might have been embarrassment. Then our ship crashed, and we discovered we were helpless. We had no skills, no knowledge, no confidence to handle basic survival. The humans saved us not through advanced technology, but through simple skills they teach their children. I believe we made a mistake in removing all challenge from our development. The proposal faced immediate resistance. Elder Council member Sivesh, representing one of the galaxy's oldest civilizations, spoke against it. Are we to abandon millions of years of peaceful evolution? Are we to traumatize our children with unnecessary hardship? This proposal asks us to regress, not progress. The Thrawn observers stood to respond. Their massive form carried more confidence than before. Elder Sivesh, with respect, we are not suggesting regression. We are suggesting balance. I was raised in a perfectly safe hive. Every danger was removed. I learned to suppress every natural instinct I had. When the ship crashed, I felt useless until the humans taught me I could be capable. The debate continued for hours. Many species argued that their peaceful nature was their greatest achievement. Others pointed out that the stranding proved a vulnerability no one had acknowledged. The galaxy had become dependent on technology to the point where they were helpless without it. Finally, a compromise was reached. A pilot program would be established at the Galactic Academy. Human instructors would teach basic survival skills, starting with a voluntary course for young adults. If successful, the program might expand. Do-Hyun Seo arrived at the Galactic Academy 2 months later. He was a former wilderness survival expert from Earth, specifically recruited to develop the curriculum. He was nervous about teaching aliens, but he approached it the same way he approached teaching humans, with patience, respect, and practical demonstrations. His first class had 20 students from 15 different species. Most had never been uncomfortable in their lives. They had never been cold, hungry, or physically challenged. The first lesson was simple: starting a fire without technology. Do-Hyun stood in front of the class holding a bow drill kit. This is one of the oldest tools humans ever made. It is simple, but it requires patience and technique. Today, each of you will learn to create fire using only this and natural materials. The students looked skeptical and nervous. A young Velthari spoke up. Instructor Seo, why must we learn this? We have plasma torches and energy sources. Why use such primitive methods? Do-Hyun smiled. Because plasma torches can break. Energy sources can fail. But if you know how to create fire from basic materials, you always have that capability. This is not about rejecting technology. This is about not depending entirely on it. It took 3 days before the first student successfully created fire. When the small flame appeared from the Velthari student's bow drill, the entire class cheered. It was a simple achievement by human standards, but for these aliens it was revolutionary. They had done something with their own effort and skill, without any technology. Word of the program spread. Some praised it as innovative and necessary. Others criticized it as corrupting youth with death-world barbarism. A heated debate erupted across the galaxy about whether this kind of education was appropriate for peaceful species. The debate was settled by accident. A colony world suffered a catastrophic life support failure due to sabotage. The colony included several students from Do-Hyun's survival program. While adults panicked and waited for rescue teams, the students calmly implemented basic protocols they had learned. They secured water sources and rationed supplies. They maintained temperature through improvised insulation methods. They organized work groups and kept morale high. Their actions saved dozens of lives and bought crucial time for rescue teams to arrive. The news spread across the galaxy instantly. After that incident, resistance to the program collapsed. Enrollment requests flooded in from across the galaxy. Species that had initially refused to participate now requested human instructors for their own worlds. The program expanded rapidly. Ambassador Minho watched these changes with quiet satisfaction. Humanity's membership in the Galactic Council was no longer questioned. Instead, humans were sought out as teachers and advisors. The same skills that had once horrified the galaxy were now valued as crucial knowledge. Jiho continued her work as cultural attaché, but now she also coordinated the growing network of survival education programs. She traveled to different worlds, helping adapt human teaching methods for species with different physiologies and environments. It was challenging but deeply rewarding work. Hyejin returned to Earth, but her outdoor education program became famous across the galaxy. She received constant requests from alien educators wanting to learn her methods. She agreed to teach them, but only on one condition. They had to complete a week-long survival course with her students first. Most accepted enthusiastically. The Velthari representative underwent the greatest personal transformation. They established an exchange program where young Velthari came to Earth for a full season, living with human families and learning survival skills alongside human children. The first group of Velthari students returned home changed, more confident and capable than any previous generation. Young Dayun, now 14 years old, became something of a celebrity. The footage of her cheerfully demonstrating fire starting to horrified council members had been viewed billions of times across the galaxy. She found it amusing. She also started a youth exchange program, hosting young aliens who wanted to learn survival skills directly from human children. 5 years after the initial controversy, the Galactic Academy hosted a graduation ceremony for the first full cohort to complete the comprehensive survival education program. Students from 300 species demonstrated skills their ancestors would have considered impossible and unnecessary. Dohyun watched with quiet pride as a young Velthari student successfully started a fire using a bow drill, the same technique that had once symbolized everything frightening about human childhood, now represented capability and independence. The student's crystalline form glowed with satisfaction. The student turned to Dohyun and asked, "What do we learn next, instructor?" Dohyun smiled. "Next, we teach you why these skills matter, not just for survival but for confidence and problem solving. We teach you that you are more capable than you think. Your species spent millions of years making the galaxy safe. Now we help you remember that you do not need the galaxy to be safe. You just need to trust yourselves." That evening, Ambassador Minho received formal communication from the Council. Humanity had been granted full membership with a unanimous vote. But more meaningful than the political achievement was the attached personal note from the Velthari representative. "We asked what human children study." The note read, "You told us mathematics, reading, and how to start fires with sticks. We thought it was a confession of negligence, proof that your world was too dangerous for children. It was actually your greatest gift to the galaxy. You reminded us that sapience is not measured by how much we have insulated ourselves from challenge, but by how well we rise to meet it. Thank you for teaching us what we had forgotten." Minho shared the message with Jiho, Jiwan, and Hyejin during a video call. They were scattered across the galaxy now, each working on different aspects of the education program. But they came together regularly to coordinate and support each other. "Do you think we have changed the galaxy?" Jiho asked. Hyejin laughed. "We just taught them what we teach 12-year-olds on Earth. If that changed the galaxy, then maybe the galaxy needed changing." 10 years later, survival education was standard across the galaxy, not just for children, but for adults returning to skills their species had lost generations ago. The galaxy had not become more dangerous, but its people had become more capable of handling danger when it arrived. On a remote world at the edge of known space, a mixed group of human and alien teenagers sat around a campfire they had built together. They were telling stories, sharing food they had gathered, and planning tomorrow's hike. They did not think of themselves as doing anything extraordinary. They were just kids on a camping trip. The difference was that now the galaxy understood. Teaching children to start fires with sticks was not about dwelling in the past or preparing for primitive conditions. It was about ensuring they could handle whatever future came their way. It was about building confidence, capability, and the knowledge that they were stronger than they knew. Dayun, now a young woman and junior instructor in the program, sat with the group around their fire. An alien student asked her why humans place so much importance on this particular skill. She thought about it for a moment, watching the flames dance. Fire was humanity's first technology. Before we had cities or spaceships or computers, we had fire. Learning to create it connects us to our ancestors and reminds us that we can solve problems with what we have available. It is not about the fire itself. It is about knowing you can create something essential from nothing but effort and knowledge. The alien student nodded slowly, beginning to understand. Around them, Other students from a dozen species practiced skills that had once seemed barbaric but now seemed essential. They were learning not just survival but confidence, not just techniques but capability. The galaxy had changed. Species that had spent millions of years eliminating challenge from their lives were now deliberately introducing it back in controlled, educational ways. They were not becoming more primitive. They were becoming more complete. And it all started because someone asked a simple question. What do human children study? The answer had seemed shocking at first. Math, reading, and how to start fires with sticks. But that answer taught the galaxy something profound. True advancement is not about eliminating all challenges. It is about developing the capability to face whatever challenges come. The humans had known this all along. Now the rest of the galaxy was learning it too, one campfire at a time.